Hey, I'm Nader, one of the co-founders of Brev. Brev is a developer environment that will let you build a production hosted backend in seconds. So let's go ahead and use this to create a React app. We can have a full production level app in less than 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. Cool. So this is the Brev React starter. I'll share the link below. We can go ahead and clone it. So let's go ahead and move into that directory and run npm install to install any of the dependencies that are there. We're going to be using Brev to store our users, have a database, and actually get the backend ready. And we'll be using Cotter, a company that we're huge fans of, to allow us to get user authentication. And together, in about 10 minutes, everything will be ready to go. So just give this a moment. You can also follow along through this tutorial in our Brev documentation. So right now we're on step 1, which is cloning the starter project, running npm install. Cool. So now that we're here, we've installed and downloaded the code, we can go ahead and run npm start. This is going to spin up the server, and then we can go into our web app. Perfect. Cool, here we are. So now we need to get our API keys for Cotter's login form. So it might help to open up this repo in VS Code is what I'm going to use, but you can use whatever code editor that you're familiar with. This is just a basic React app, but pre-configured with Cotter and Brev. So let's head to the Cotter dashboard. I already have an account, but signing up will literally take one click. You can copy your API key, and just like they say, paste it into apikeys.js. So API keys.js, and let's go ahead and put our let's go ahead and put the API key there and save it. So the React app will automatically update, and now we're on step 2. We can try logging in. Surprised I've already logged in. And so now we can use Brev to quickly and scalably store our users. So setting that up means creating our Brev account and then following this along with the tutorial. So I'll go ahead and just log into my Brev account. By the way, with Brev, you can actually set this up if you search here for the CLI. You can set everything up on the CLI and go that route, but I'll go ahead and do this on the web app. So following along, we're going to set up Brev to store users. So let's create 2 variables, one called Cotter, and we're going to put our Cotter API key there. So on Brev, we'll open up variables and add a row, Cotter, and then our API key. And let's go ahead and save that. Cool. So now, and by the way, the variables is just like a password manager, but for your code, because you probably don't want to commit these values. The next thing is public key location. So as we're signing up users with Brev, we want to verify the authentication token that comes up. So we're going to use the public key that Cotter provides for us. So let's go ahead and set up public key location. And it's this value. Great. So now we can feel free to just use these values in our code. So now we want to add the following to shared code. What this does is this is just specifying what the JSON object that's coming in. So once a user signs into the React app, they're going to send over essentially that user and their authentication. That way we can store them in our database and keep track of our users. And then in order to do that, we need to validate the auth token with the public key that we just added to our variables. So just go ahead and copy this and put it in your shared code. And go ahead and save that. Great. So now let's go ahead and create an endpoint, and we're going to call it users. So we can go ahead and paste our code from the documentation. And what we're doing here is creating a post call in Brev. So the payload is defined in shared code, but this is the JSON object that's going to come up from the mobile app that Cotter is going to send over so that we can store the user. User store is the database, so we're creating a storage context, which there's more of inside of the Brev documentation, but this is essentially a one line to create a database or just fetch it for you if it exists. We're going to get the access token, and we're going to validate it using that function, verifying against Cotter's public key. Once we've done that step, we can come here, grab this value from the Cotter object, which is going to be the unique ID for each user. We'll index on that ID, and we'll store the entire user object. So let's go ahead and save this code. You'll notice the endpoint is /users. We gave the endpoint a useful name already, so if you use a name other than users, we're going to have to update that in the React code, but that'll be easy. Now all we need to do is hook up the front end to the back end. So you'll notice that every Brev project is automatically deployed for you. So let's just go ahead and copy the slug. And if we go to the agent file is what's going to connect your front end to your back end on Brev. So let's go ahead here and just change this to be the actual project ID. So once you've done that, we're done, and we've already built and hooked up our backend. We can just hop over to Cotter. You'll see that Brev is now all hooked up. We can now go to the dashboard and see all of the users that have been created on this database. So every time someone logs in now with your app, you'll be able to see them right here. Hope that was useful. I'll probably make another video very soon about how to now make authenticated endpoints. Now that you have authenticated users and they're stored, now you can make endpoints that only your users are able to access. Happy hacking.